Chaina's Torment, Chapter 7. Chaina watched the big barbarian Kamahl come through the entrance gate. He was some kind of local hero among the tribes who lived up high in the Pardic Mountains. Chaina had heard the upper reaches of the Pardic Mountains were thick with dwarves, but the big, bold barbarian towered over even the half-troll Dorgard. The pit fighter in Chaina quickly surveyed her potential challenge. Kamahl had several ragged scars along his shoulders and chest where the skin hadn't so much as healed as it had closed when it puckered like wet leather. Chaina watched him stalk his way through the crowd, maneuvering his heavy weaponry around others like an expert. He wasn't sure what to make of the warrior, but Chaina quickly determined he'd never take him lightly. He miserably patted his hip where his black chain should have been, and his shoulder which should have held his holstered knuckle dagger. The first had sent word early this morning via messenger. As his personal representative, Chaina was obliged to leave his fighting weapons in Skellim's care. The first did not wish to antagonize his guest, Kamahl the Barbarian, and so Chaina was to leave his chain and his dagger behind as a gesture of hospitality. The note came with a long, ceremonial dagger for Chaina to wear on his hip. It was traditional, the note said. Chaina pointed out to Skellim that in addition to being ceremonial, the dagger was also too heavy. It had runes carved clean through its blade, and was entirely useless for everything but stirring gruel. The first had not given any alternatives, however, and Chaina put on the dagger. So here he was, representing the first in the Cabal without his weapons and without any coherent instructions. As far as he understood, he was supposed to linger around Kamahl and make sure that the big hunk of meat didn't get lost on his way to winning the Mirari and taking it away with him. Chaina watched Kamahl a few moments as the barbarian took in one of the preliminary bouts. He was clearly not impressed, and Chaina couldn't blame him. The master of the games was either slipping or he had been ordered to put on a dreary show. There was no other way a clown act would be allowed to continue. As the first representative, Chaina thought, I should step in here. I should steer the mighty muscle head away from the cheap seats and help him find the master of the games. My job reeks, Chaina said out loud, but approached the barbarian, stepping up to him just as the larger man was shaking his head. Don't give up hope just yet, sir. Chaina tried to sound helpful, like one of the shills who roamed the casino floor. The barbarian looked Chaina over much as Chaina had gauged Kamahl moments ago. He didn't seem to like what he saw. My name is Chaina. He offered his hand. He motioned his head towards the awkward show in the nearby pit. The pair are partners against Lieutenant Kirtar. Chaina wrinkled his nose, a champion from the Northern Order. The barbarian brightened a little. Of course, Chaina thought. A wild warrior from the mountains would certainly share Chaina's dislike of the Order. Kamahl, here to win the tournament. Chaina raised an eyebrow, but once more reminded himself that this was his mission. You'll want to see the master of the games, then. Chaina exhaled and began to relax. Perhaps this wouldn't be so terrible after all. He led Kamahl to the sprawl of practice pits, betting circles, and impromptu grudge matches and gawking yokels. He played tour guide by pointing out the Mur ambassador Loquatus, who got an excellent barbarian grunt of disapproval, and Loquatus's bodyguard Turg. Kamahl looked at the big amphibian warily, but his face betrayed none of his thoughts. They paused to watch the end of the embarrassment that was the guitar match. Then Chaina brought Kamahl to the master of the games. The master winked at Chaina and started giving Kamahl a hard time about letting the barbarian into the tournament. Kamahl didn't seem to notice he was being slighted. He was too busy staring at the Mirari. The master of the games reminded Chaina of Roop, thick, stupid, and clumsy. He didn't know if the master's wink had been a signal of the assumed camaraderie between Cabalists, or if it meant the master was hassling Kamahl on the first orders. Just as Chaina was accompanying him around the games, he didn't like it in either case. Much to Chaina's delight, Kamahl didn't like the master's attitude either. In fact, he didn't like it so much that he casually tossed what appeared to be a red-hot copper coin through a nearby wall with the force of an exploding cannonball. Chaina laughed at the master's bewildered face as the rubble smoked and the dust settled. Kamahl smiled mischievously at him. This, Chaina said to himself, will definitely be more fun than I thought. His excitement cooled as Kamahl advanced on him. Look, the barbarian said. What do you want? I appreciate your help, but I'm busy, and I don't need a sidekick. Chaina darkened. Then it's just as well you don't have one. I'm here on business. We don't have any business. We just met. Chaina took a breath. My friend, I have to admit I don't understand the point of this any more than you do. But this is Kamahl City and things happen for a reason here. I can at least explain that. Okay, Kabbalist, explain. Do you have tribal elders up in Parduk? Elders? Sure. And do you obey them? Kamahl laughed harshly. Only when it suits us and only when they're right. He shrugged. Sometimes not even then. We revere our elders here. We've all sworn oaths to obey a superior Kabbalist, and the first himself, the lord and master of the entire Cabal, wishes me to learn from you. I intend to respect his wishes. I don't want a student. And I've already got a mentor. I was hoping we could teach each other something, as if we've been randomly assigned as pit partners. Chaina locked eyes with Kamahl. I can help you. Kamahl crossed his arms. Go ahead, then. How much are you paying for your lodgings? 15 silver a night, and I'm only here for 2 nights for the games. You're being robbed. There are warriors' quarters right outside the arena that only charge 5. I can take you there. Kamahl considered. All right, he finally said. You saved me 20 silver. Now what? 18, Chaina corrected. Finder's fee is 2%. I knew it, Kamahl growled. There's always an angle with you Kabbalists. He turned to go. Do you know how to bet on yourself? Chaina said quickly. Kamahl stopped. Do you know how to ask politely and who to threaten? Do you understand that the master of the games has put you on the slow track because of your stunt with the coin back there? Kamahl grunted angrily. I don't understand half of what you just said. Chaina smiled. Then I've made my point. All that stuff. Kamahl shook his head. Betting, bragging, working with pairs, it's dreck. A warrior's skill determines victory. In the pits, Chaina said, but you're in the city now. The pits are the least of your worries. Kamahl glared at Chaina, then back at the master of the game's station. Slowly he said, All right, Chaina, what is the slow track? Always remind yourself that this is a business. The master of the games is responsible for getting the most out of the contestants. Did you bribe him at all? I paid a lump of gold to get in the gates. That goes to the gatekeepers. Did you pay the master of the games anything? Kamahl chuckled. Just that coin. Then he's got to make his money off you in some other way. Most likely he'll put you up against as many preliminary bouts as he can, against opponents that are no real challenge. He's got to display you, keep you working in front of the crowds just to break even on your entrance fee. He's going to work you like an animal. And how, Kamahl's voice was low and menacing, do I get on the fast track? You need to pay proper respect to the master. 25 silver should cover it. How much tender have you got? 10 gold, Kamahl said immediately. Shh, Chaina hissed. He looked around nervously. That was a joke. Never answered that question around here. What? No one is going to take my money from me without a fight. No one would dare. Sure they would. I know pickpockets who could steal the blade off your sword while it was still in the scabbard. If I can't teach you anything else, I can at least teach you one thing. Never announce how much you're carrying in the city. Chaina worked his fingers as he calculated. 10 gold is about 50 silver. 25 for the master, 10 for your lodgings. You won't have much left for food and frolic. Food. I need food. Frolic, not so much. Okay, that's the first thing we'll do after bribing the master, Chaina said. Is bet. We'll get the best odds on your first fight, because you're an unknown. If we get you on the fast track, the odds are going to be even better. Have you even spoken to a fixer? No. We'll do that next. Fixers set odds, take bets, and schedule matches. They make all the arrangements for civilians like you who want to do business with the Cabal. I'm not a civilian, I'm a warrior. In this town, you're either Cabal, Order, or civilian. Come on, I did a little checking, and there's a match that you can help me handicap. And I can help you make some money. Kamahl finally looked interested. What kind of match? Vampire against Lavamancer. You know about Lavamancers, yes? And I know about vampires. Between the two of us, we've got all the angles covered. The stadium was divided into numerous circles with the largest and innermost set aside for the main events. It was surrounded by rows and rows of seats, and a dozen circular platforms floated silently above the arena floor, giving the important and wealthy the best possible view. Chaina led Kamahl to the center pit and pointed out a fixer who was busily taking bets. He'll do. What I don't understand, Chaina said to Kamahl, is how anyone who bets on the Lavamancer think they're going to get their money back. The odds are good, but this is a vampire. And not just any vampire, it's a Sengir vampire. Chaina pointed to the huge, bold, man-like creature standing at the center of the pit. Its eyes were black and lifeless, and its teeth jutted out from beneath its lips. All the teeth, not just the canines, were twisted and pointed like thorns, and the Singer's filthy nails hung past its fingertips like talons. It sniffed the air like a wild dog, head darting as it orientated on each new scent, and it hissed at the crowd. Across the pit stood a dark-skinned human in tanned animal hides. His hair was loose and wild, and he carried a short sword. Kamahl regarded the toothy brute and then continued to scan the entire arena, drinking it all in. "What's a Singer?" "Ancient vampire lord," Chaina said. "Possibly a myth. Some vampires prey on villages, some on cities. They say Singer preyed on entire continents." "And you've got an ancient vampire in the pit for the opening bout?" "Not Singer himself, one of his minions." "Bet on the Lavamancer," Kamahl said. "Bet it all." "You that sure?" "I am. Vampires burn, don't they?" "Some do if you can hold them still long enough to set them on fire." Chaina pointed at the vampire's opponent. "So Lavamancers work with lava, do they? Flames and smoke and all that?" "Yeah, but Lavamancer is a title, like champion or wizard. I say bet on him." "It's your money." Chaina held out his hand and Kamahl stared at it. "You're learning," Chaina laughed. He led Kamahl over to the fixer, showed him how to place a bet, and then the two settled on the rail to watch the bout. A horn sounded, and Chaina said, "That's the prep horn. It means the match is about to start, and the fighters have 15 seconds to prepare." The lava monster knelt and touched the arena floor, mouthing a silent incantation. The Singer vampire continued to look around the arena and hiss at the audience. When the starting horn sounded, the vampire suddenly became much more focused on its opponent. Its eyes narrowed as it crouched and began stalking the lava monster. Its pointed tongue lapped hungrily around its lips. The lava monster stood his ground, still mouthing words that no one could hear. The vampire suddenly charged, and the lava monster pointed his sword and released a red-hot ball of magma and ash from its tip. The vampire caught the missile full in the chest, and for a moment its entire body was engulfed in flames and smoke. The crowd's cheer became a collective gasp as the flaming vampire leaped into the air. Soaring high over the arena floor, it swooped and dove, moving fast enough to extinguish the flames that were consuming its ragged robes. Chaina leaned over to Kamahl and said, "Did you know they could fly?" "No." Kamahl was impassive. "I assume they still drink blood." Before Chaina could answer, the blackened vampire screeched and dropped down on the lava monster. The Singer was so much bigger and broader than its wild-haired opponent that he seemed to swallow the lava monster up whole. They grappled and rolled across the arena floor until the vampire pinned the lava monster's arms and sank its sharp, twisted teeth into the man's neck. "One less Lavamancer, one more Singer," Chaina said. "Sorry, Kamahl, but this match is all but over." "Agreed," Kamahl said, but in the pit it was the Singer who shuddered and thrashed, not the human in its grip. With a roar, the vampire cast its intended victim aside and fell back, clutching at its face in agony. Flames poured from between its lips, and its lower jaw seemed to be melting. "Earth is the body and lava is the blood," Kamahl said. "Lavamancers believe that utterly. In mastering their craft, they embody that belief." The lava monster's blood, red-hot and steaming, continued to jet from the wound in his neck while the vampire flailed. The lava monster clapped a glowing hand over his wound and seared it shut. He drove the tip of his sword into the floor, raised his arms, and completed his incantation. A huge gout of molten rock exploded from the ground beneath his sword. The stream arced up and onto the vampire, totally covering him in thick, clinging lava. The outer layer of the covering quickly cooled and hardened, but the vampire continued to move, step by agonizing step. It came closer to the lava monster. The dark-skinned man calmly let the Singer approach, and when it was close enough, he struck its head from its body with a short, straight slash of his sword. The Singer's stone-encrusted head and carcass both fell and melted into ash. The lava monster raised his arms in victory, and the crowd shook the walls with its cheering. Chaina bowed to Kamahl. "I stand corrected." He stood straight and clapped the barbarian on the shoulder. "And you stand enriched. The odds were 5-1 against the Lavamancer. You made enough to live like a king for at least a week." Kamahl smiled. "One less thing to worry about, that's all. I'm more concerned with winning my own matches." Good point, good point. When's your first bout?" "Just before the lunch break." "Well then, we better get you where you need to be. If you're as good a fighter as you were a handicapper, you might actually make good on that boast to win the tourney."